Welcome back to the RCA channel, guys. Today we're going to be fixing a very heavily used pair of Bont shoes. We're going to be swapping Cam's cleats over to a new set of Bonts, which are here next to me, much wider, much cleaner. These ones have had a hard life. They have got bits of mud caked in here around the cleats. Cam's cleats are almost completely worn off to a dangerous level here. He's behind the camera at the moment laughing at me. You can see that this front tine of the cleat is probably only 2.5 millimeters thick. It should be about 6 millimeters thick, and there is a huge chamfer been tapered onto the cleat, which you can just see if we sight down along the cleat there. You can see that it's on an angle. So every time Cam's been unclipping, his cleat's been rubbing on the ground and it's worn the cleat away. This front bit is starting to become dangerous now. This is at the point where this could actually snap off in a sprint.
That's how I like it, Neil.
Cam likes to live life on the edge, and he's left his shoes nicely caked up with gunk here for me too. So this is showcasing just how much of a professional Cameron really is. You know, this is how we roll here at the RCA. So step one, get the gunk out of these. What we're going to do is show you a really, really easy way of transferring your cleat position across to a new pair of shoes. Now, there are better ways than this, but this is the one which is going to be the most replicatable and the most simple.
Most simple, that's what I want, Neil.
Most simple.
Even though I'll still get you to do it.
You're a simple man. We're learning that. Cam's not very mechanically inclined, so here I am changing his cleats like a 5-year-old. So, first thing to do, highlight the center line of the cleat on both old and new shoes. So this is an Expedo cleat, I think it is. It's got a very clearly visible centerline marking here. Your Shimano cleat has got a much less visible centerline marking just on the side there. Highlight it so that it's easy to see. Speed plays, they have a dirty great big line down the center of the base plate. So by far the easiest one to see where the cleat center is. Highlight the cleat center and then fasten a cleat to your new shoe. I'm going to do this quickly. We'll speed this bit up. We have fastened our new cleat lightly onto the shoe. It's still loose, right? There's two things you need to replicate here. You need to replicate the fore and aft position of the cleat and the side to side position. The float as well, if possible, by eye. Most people, if they're using a cleat with some float, like a 6-degree cleat or something like that, the float is not going to be hypercritical within a tiny angle tolerance. But if you get the fore and aft position and the side to side position right, with a little bit of float in the cleat, you'll be totally fine. Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing this, but this is the one that works most reliably, and I'll show you how this works. Most shoes, now we've got a Bont to a Bont here, so this is going to be super accurate for this because these two shoes are constructed almost identically. But most shoes, if you took a pincer measurement, if you can imagine I'm sort of measuring with a C shape here with my fingers, you took a pincer measurement of the distance or the thickness of the heel cup from the most rearward position of the shoe to the inside where your heel is going to butt up against the back of the shoe. Almost every shoe is going to be somewhere between 4 and 7 millimeters thick. I've measured about 100 shoes and most of them are like that. This Bont is actually one of the thinnest. It's probably like 3.5, 4 millimeters. So they vary only a little bit. What's going to happen here is your heel is going to sit up on the inside of that, and therefore the distance from the rear of the shoe with say a 3 to 6 or 7 millimeter thick back end here, the distance from the heel forwards to the cleat should remain the same between two pairs of shoes. You should never ever measure from the toe box. You might find you've got a Lake shoe and a Bont or a Giro and a whatever, a Rafa. The toe boxes are completely differently shaped. So you never ever want to measure from the tip of the shoe rearwards. You want to measure from the rear of the shoe forwards. Now we're going to cut to a different shot here because we need to look down at these from above. So what you want to do here is butt your shoes with the heel back against a solid wall, the flat surface. Make sure that they're perpendicular to the wall. So they're not skewed off like this or like that. They're not out of plane with each other. Sit them up against something like this and make sure that they're square to the wall. Then it's a simple matter of lining up the center lines. Now, if you've got a like for like cleat here, we've got an Expedo cleat being replaced by an Expedo cleat, you can just line up the back edges. If you've got a slightly different cleat, like you're going from Shimano to Look, for example, you will need to line up the centerline markings, which is one of the reasons we highlighted it there to make it easy. This one, very straightforward. What we're going to do is basically push this cleat. It's not going to want to be there because you can see that the two back edges are completely misaligned by around 10 millimeters. This should be pretty straightforward because it looks as if Bont they've used a very similar sole plate and bolt location layout. So if we push this cleat all the way back, which is exactly where the one in my left hand is, all the way back, all the way towards the arch of the shoe, and we've got the same cleat position measured from the heel of the shoe forward. So the reason this works is because almost every shoe on the market has a very, very similar depth of the heel cup rearwards projection. I don't even know what you'd call this, but the thickness of the heel cup there, and your heel is going to sit a similar distance into the back of each shoe. Now, there are caveats here, as there's always caveats. If your foot is a terrible fit into one shoe versus the other, and it sits off the back of this a bit, it's not going to be as accurate. If you've got a horrifically different padding system in the back, there's huge amounts of padding in one and almost no padding in the other, the more different the heel cup is, the worse this is going to work. But if you've got a like for like or a similar shoe with a similar kind of thickness of the heel cup, measuring from the rear forwards and replicating that, and then also replicating the side to side position of the cleat. Torque them down in the correct position, and then I always recommend that you outline your cleats. Now, I like to use whiteout, a simple whiteout pen. If you've got a black soled, carbon soled shoe here, is really, really easy to see. Even on Cam's very, very old shoes here, where's the other one? On Cam's very, very old shoes here, the whiteout is still visible. If we zoom in just around here, you can still see my whiteout that I probably put there a year or two ago. So when you're changing cleats, you can just put the new cleat straight back down on exactly the same position and all should be well. Now here's a textbook example of why you should check your cleats fairly regularly, because this one on Cam's right shoe, you can see it's twisted. It's come off our markings. The shim that's underneath there is no longer clearly, the outline is no longer clearly visible, and the cleat has rotated. This has happened at some point in the last couple of months, I assume, mate. You haven't been having any right-sided knee pain on the bike, have you, Cam?
No.
That is another good example of why you should check your cleat position regularly and why you should outline your cleats so that if they rotate, the bolts come loose, anything like that, and they rotate when you go to clip out, you're not going to get a problem. You can just easily put it straight back down to where it used to be. So that's how to replicate your cleat position across onto a new pair of shoes. Hopefully that little tip helps some of you guys out there.
And you made me look like an idiot.